Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Fantasy First as we slowly progress our way through preseason. I mean, it's such a tease, preseason. It's like a girl that's so freaking hot that you want to just bang, but she won't let you. It's like we get through this long off season. All right, we make it through February, March, April. We get through the draft, May, June, July with camp. But then it's like this preseason, as great as it is, it feels like it takes forever. Anyways, but what's up, guys? It's great to be back with you. I did get a new camera. My sister was letting me borrow her Galaxy S5, and that's what I was doing all the videos on. And then she went to school, so I had to kind of invest in myself here. So I got a Nikon D5500 DSLR, and I'm still getting used to it. This is my first DSLR camera, so we'll see. This is my first episode with it. So today we're going to just kind of, talk more news and notes about training camp, how this affects your fantasy roster, because this is a big time right now in fantasy football. If you haven't had your drafts, you definitely are going to want to, take heed at some of the stuff we talk about today. So let's dive right in, and let's talk, obviously, the news that was heard around the world. Jordy Nelson. What a shame, as I sit here and I play the world's tiniest violin. No, not really. I'm kind of, bummed out about Jordy. I'm a fan. Not that I care about, I'm not a... It sucks when the white boy goes down, especially at such a prolific skill receiver. It sucks when anybody goes down. I have that personal attachment towards Jordy. But what do you do now? Whether you have had your draft or you haven't, you want to target Davante Adams, okay? We saw what this kid did in the NFC Championship game, all right? He was a stud, and that was with Nelson and Cobb healthy. Now he'll be the number one. I expect Cobb to stay in the slot, stay that number two guy for Rodgers. But again, listen, Davante had 24 touchdowns at Fresno State his senior year with Derek Carr. This guy, he can be a red zone threat. That's kind of what Jordy Nelson was for Rodgers. All right, so while I think in terms of a win-loss record, you might see a little bit of a difference for the Packers, but in terms of your fantasy, I can see Davante Adams putting similar numbers up to Jordy. I'm not expecting 1,500, but I do expect a high-end wide receiver too. Okay, so if you haven't had your drafts and you're in round 5, round 6, and you want a receiver with upside, my advice to you is you go out and you draft Davante Adams. So... moving on, let's talk about some of the rookie quarterbacks, the big names, obviously Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston. All right, let's start with Mariota. He had a pretty nice game against the Rams. All right, he looked good. He looked wise beyond his years, really utilizing that hard count. He was, changing plays at the line. In the pocket, he looked pretty good. All right, he did roll out a couple times, but that's what Mariota gives you. He hit his tight end when he rolled out of the pocket on a deep throw down the right sideline. I think it was like a 30-plus yard completion. Especially against a Rams formidable defense, which isn't pulling any stops. They're trying to come after you. I think that Mariota handled himself well. I do believe that he can be a franchise quarterback. Now, in terms of fantasy, I'm drafting him as my backup quarterback, almost with my second to last round pick, because if there are rushing yards there for this guy, okay, he can provide you with a high floor. I'm not saying he's going to be a QB1, but I think depending on the matchup, he could give you 18-plus fantasy points at quarterback, especially when you got those trees and Hunter, Green Beckham that you can just kind of throw up to in the end zone. The report is, too, him and Kendall Wright have a great rapport with one another. Better go get Kendall Wright. I think he could be a PPR stud. I don't think 80 catches is out of the realm of possibility. So, I look at all that. I definitely think that Mariota's worth attention. Jameis Winston, he had a good first game. He had an overthrow to Mike Evans down at the seam. But then again, last night on Monday Night Football, Okay, this guy showed that he has the traits to be a great quarterback. What a live and electric arm this guy has, pushing the ball down the field with ease. Now, he did get nicked up. He got his ankle rolled on an all-out blitz last night by the Bengals. Geno Atkins was in Winston's face a lot of the night. Geno looks great. But Winston was able to hit people in stride, had good throws. He even ran for a touchdown. One thing about Jameis Winston is, make no mistake, this guy's a pocket quarterback. If you looked at this guy try to run for that touchdown, it was slow. But that doesn't mean I think he has 1 to 250 yard rushing upside potential. And that's a nice cachet of side points from a quarterback. So that's definitely something I'm looking out for. I like both these rookie quarterbacks, and I'm drafting potentially both of them to be a bye week starter for me if I've got a Rodgers, if I've got a Luck, even if I've got a Roethlisberger or a Russell Wilson, somebody like that. I like these backup quarterbacks. So look at these guys late in your drafts. They could help you. Moving on. Sam Bradford and the Philadelphia Eagles. Sam looked good. Now, he took a couple shots from Suggs, but you know what? I want my guy to take shots. Take a lick. Get a feel for the game. All right? You want that sort of thing, okay? Listen, Bradford, I got news for you, pal, all right? You're not going to never get hit in this league, all right? It's going to happen to you. So just get ready for it, and I think he did a good job of doing that. He was accurate with his throws, hit Jordan Matthews, hit Nelson Aguilar. I think that Sam Bradford has low-end quarterback one potential in this system. And if I'm in round 10, right, maybe all the starters were gone. I'm not 100% comfortable with Bradford as my starting quarterback. But if I had to, because I got a lineup that's like Calvin Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, maybe I got a Gronkowski. If I've just got skill position studs, all right, I might take a chance on a guy like Sam Bradford. So someone you're going to want to keep an eye out for, especially with this dress rehearsal coming up pretty soon with the week 3 of the preseason. As far as the running game goes, it looked like a split. DeMarco Murray, Ryan Matthews, and Darren Sproles all got red zone touches. Ryan Matthews scored from about 15 yards out on a nice little run. DeMarco Murray, he also scored out from about 5 yards. The point is here, don't overdraft Murray. I think while Murray's a second-round pick, I'm not reaching high. I think he's a mid to late second-round pick. I'd rather go with a guy like Jeremy Hill, personally, who's young, who's fresh, who looks good in that system. Now, Hill didn't look good last night against the Bucks, but I'm not going to let one preseason game indict him to a season of just average. I still think Hill's a stud. So be careful where you draft these running backs from Philly. Matthews might be the best value in round 6, round 7. Sproles is still going to hold some value because, again, you're one injury away from just there being 2 guys, and then both those 2 guys are going to hold tremendous value. So another thing that I want to look out for, again, the same game, Jordy Nelson got hurt. The Steelers, Marcus Pouncey went down. That does not spell good for Ben Roethlisberger. We saw that in 2013 when he went down, that line didn't look too good. So, especially when Ben Roethlisberger does struggle with interior pressure. But the big story is here that Marcus Wheaton was the starter on 2 wide receiver sets. While I believe that Martavis Bryant is still the superior talent and should be drafted as such, Marcus Wheaton is going to cut into that time a little bit. He's going to get some targets. I think the whole march to 1,100 with Martavis might have to cool down a little bit. I think he's a 900 receiver guy, but I think because of the touchdown upside, his size, the fact that they target this dude in the red zone, he still can have 7 and 9 touchdowns. But for a guy like Martavis, again, you're going to chase the touchdowns. And while I think that, yes, I definitely want Bryant on my roster, he's not a 4th-round pick. I'd be too scared to take him there. I'd rather take a guy like Brandon Cooks, Jordan Matthews, guys that are going to get heavily targeted in their offenses. And, again, I like Wheaton, but, again, do I think Bryant is more talented? Yeah, I do. I think Wheaton might be better value. You might be able to get him in round 10. but I still want Bryant in out of those. Brown is locked in, 100 catches, 1,400 yards. Just throw that on the board. But it's really going to see who gets that side production. That's what I'm real interested in, and again, that's definitely something you're going to want to watch during the regular season dress rehearsal. Next topic, Dallas running game. They played the 49ers over the weekend, and nothing really looked good. Darren McFadden just looked like the stiff 28-year-old running back that always suffered from injuries that he is. Lance Dunbar sprinkled in there, nothing really major. And Joseph Randle, I believe, is still hurt. He didn't play because we know about that frame that he has. So I'm a little worried about this Dallas running game. I mean, seriously, it's definitely going to be a running back by committee. So just because you drafted Randle or you want to draft Randle doesn't mean he's locked in for 200 touches. If there's any guy I want to own in this backfield, yes, it probably is Randle. But I know that McFadden's going to get his touches and Dunbar might be the third down guy. I'm not reaching for any of them. I think that all the Dallas Cowboy running backs are probably round 6, round 7 draft picks. I'm not reaching for any of them. You can talk about that line till the cows come home. I definitely think Romo will be dropping back more this season. And that line could help protect him, but man, I am not feeling safe at all when it comes to that Dallas running game. So drafter, beware. Don't overvalue those guys. You might end up regretting it. Next order of business, Todd Gurley. He looks like he's going to miss some of the season, as we all expected. He said that he might play, or Fisher said that they might sprinkle him in maybe a couple weeks through the season. But right now, Mason looks to be entrenched as the guy. They're going to sprinkle in Benny Cunningham a bit. And Gurley eventually will get his opportunity. The problem is, when does that opportunity come? I'm not overvaluing Gurley. I was just in the draft where a guy took him in round 3. I think that's really high, especially when you're not sure what you're going to get out of this dude this season. I say you wait. Round 5, round 6, okay, then it gets interesting because then you ask yourself, is this a pick that can help me win the playoffs? If you're safe with your first 4 picks as your core, okay, you want to go after Gurley for that potential playoff run, by all means, I would advise that. Just in terms of expecting a lot of work in the early season, don't put too much stock in that. So that's really the thing with Gurley. Mason will be the guy probably on first and second down, and Benny Cunningham will sprinkle in that first quarter to third of the season. So watch out for that and don't overvalue Todd Gurley. Other order of business, Brian Hoyer was named the starter in Cleveland, in Houston. That probably bodes well for DeAndre Hopkins. I was never a fan of Mallet. Everybody was raving about this dude because he's got this cannon arm. Jay Cutler has a cannon arm, in case you haven't noticed. And, well, he hasn't exactly won a plethora of NFL games. But I think that this does bode well for Hopkins, even though without Foster, without a solid number 2, defensive coaches and players are going to go into a situation where they're game planning around Hopkins. I think he's going to have some up and down weeks because of that. But Hoyer's a starter, and listen, that Browns team was in the driver's seat midway through the year last year. I believe it's 6-3. But again, the inconsistency of Hoyer ended up being that team's downfall the second half of the season. And who knows, the Texans could suffer from the same fate. Again, not too much fantasy stock here. I don't think anybody should draft Brian Hoyer, but it's worth noting for DeAndre Hopkins that Hoyer's going to be the guy going forward. Next order of business, the running game for the Broncos. Hillman looks like he might be a little bit of a vulture to C.J. Anderson. I'm still a fan of Anderson. I have him in a Dynasty League. He's my RB1. I'm locking and loading him. But it is a little bit weary, that thought in the back of your head that Hillman could sprinkle in. Apparently a beat writer reported, quote, that he sees Hillman as the 1B to Anderson's 1A. I still expect Anderson to get about 60% of the workload. But that is always, it's, you never want to hear that someone's going to eat into somebody's carries. So if you're looking for a deep handcuff stash, Ronnie Hillman might be a guy. One C.J. Anderson injury, and he could put up some points. I mean, I think he's averaged over 7 yards per carry, I want to say. Don't hold me to that one. I think I remember reading that on the Yahoo app. Somewhere between 6.5 and 7.5, though, definitely, he's averaging per carry. And it's not like it's just an 80-yard rush bolstering like a bunch of 3-yard rushes. He's cranked out a couple of 10-plus yard runs. So, also, Doug Martin looks like he's in rookie form. You go back, you watch that Monday night game that happened last night. The guy looks great. He looks fresh. He's in a contract year. And I don't mean to throw that contract year argument around a lot, but you know when it comes to running backs, it's not very lucrative for them on the open market. All right, so he's going to try to prove to Tampa that he can be the guy that you re-sign for the next 3 to 4 years and be the guy with Winston there. So if I'm in the 6th round, I might take a chance on Doug Martin. Now, he burned owners the last 2 years, but he suffered through some injuries. All right, that line wasn't that great, and that's still not that great. And that's something real quick to go back for Winston. That line does not look good. A lot of people hyped up Ali Marpet. He's got a lot of learning to do. But those are 2 running game situations you're going to want to watch going forward. Whoever's the starter there, I want to own personally. I think the Denver star is going to be Anderson, but Hillman's still a watch. Martin, though, for sure has a really good chance of starting. So, the final order of business I want to talk about is Teddy Bridgewater. In 3 preseason games, he's got a 78.6% completion percentage. This guy is efficient, all right? He's 7 for 22, 175 yards and a touchdown. This guy is starting to flirt with quarterback 1 numbers if he can carry on this sort of production of the regular season. Now, he doesn't have a big name receiver threat, but he does have Adrian Peterson, which will help with single coverage on the outsides. I like Charles Johnson. I like Mike Wallace. All right, a lot of these guys have shown that they can be productive with good quarterback play. I love how Bridgewater, how he always keeps his eyes downfield. He steps up in the pocket, always keeps that ball close to his chest, all right, with his eyes down the field. And again, he rushed for 209 yards. Hey, man, listen, hey, that's legit, man, especially when you're only getting a point for every 25 yards chucked down a field. All right, I'll take that side cachet of points, man. 200, that's 20 extra points right there for a fantasy quarterback. That's a whole that's one good week. And if you're sprinkling that out in between starts, I'll take that extra point total. So, these are just some things that to keep in mind as we enter the dress rehearsal game for the preseason, which is week 3. We're going to have more videos coming out. I'm going to talk about some rookies you're going to want to watch. Also, I did get hired to be a Dynasty Nerds writer, staff writer at dynastynerds.com. They provide amazing Dynasty insight. They have a wonderful podcast. All right, they're posting up written content every day. So if you're bored, if you're, a big Dynasty guy, or if you're just curious, go ahead and check them out. You won't be sorry. I think you'll like what their content has to offer you as a fantasy football listener. And feel free to check out my content there and let me know if it sucks. It sucks. Tell me. I'm always trying to get better, and I love hearing from all you guys. So I'll see you next time here on Fantasy First. The videos will be a little bit more consistent now that I've got the camera. We'll see you next time. High stakes sports debates.